this presentation is all about outstanding departments. They're not everything that a department needs to become outstanding, but they are some things that will help you keep a track of your department and make sure that other people in your department are where they need to be and that your environment for learning is outstanding. The first thing we're going to cover is outstanding teaching. To be an outstanding department, you need to have outstanding teaching as a head department and across your department as well through other teachers that may be involved in it. There are a number of ways to make sure that you have outstanding teaching in your department and in yourself, and one of the main things that I found of what needs to make sure that you're getting outstanding teaching is to limit your workload so that you are working smarter and not harder. One of the ways that I find to do that is to make sure, as you can see from the PowerPoint slide, that I use social media to limit and to lower my workload. For this, I try and make sure that I'm using other people who are also teachers for my subject to help me and to influence me and to share resources with. The way that I do this is to use Facebook groups and Twitter accounts to connect with other teachers, and through that we share ideas, we share resources. So that's one really good way of limiting your workload to make sure that you can focus on your lessons being outstanding as opposed to reinventing the wheel. Another way to become an outstanding teacher is to evaluate yourself all the time, so make sure that you are learning from lesson observations and to make sure that you are sharing ideas as well. So you can also, as you can see through the PowerPoint slide with a thank you card, helping others, so student teachers, because they will give you information on the way that education is changing, and they will also make you focus on how you're teaching as well, to put your teaching under the spotlight for yourself. So again, you can be evaluating yourself. The newspaper article that you can see in the PowerPoint is an example of getting other people involved from outside the school. So this was when a local newspaper came in to talk about something that the school was doing. So it meant that other people were getting a chance to see what you were doing and give you ideas, or even just to say that you're doing really well, so that you can then feel happy with your department. So outstanding teaching is obviously something you need to focus on. Another thing that you'll need to become an outstanding department is resources that aid you and that aid the students in becoming outstanding learners, and also to support the lower level. So you're talking about supporting the bottom and pushing the top. So on the PowerPoint here you can see some examples. So at the top left you have some badges that you can give out to students that give them jobs to do throughout the lesson. So for example, if someone finishes early, they can go around and they can be your learning support assistant for the day, so they can help other people in the class. That reinforces their learning. Or they can be the person that is that has the task of being the plenary checker, so they have to make sure at the end that they know that everyone has completed the learning objective. So these are just jobs that you can give students to push the higher achievers, to give them something else to do, or it can be that it can make sure that the lower achievers can focus on something to make sure that they are pushing themselves. In the middle you have some keywords that can be used in lots of different ways. So they have phonetical reading on, so they can help English as additional language students, or they can help push to higher levels so that they can practice the key terminology. They can be handed out at the beginning of the lesson and challenge the students so that they can use them throughout the lesson. Around that you've got the items with the 1 penny on and the keep off the grass sign. These are actually generic extra tasks that students can do if they finish the work, that don't have to make them work any harder or any more or write any more as a normal extension might be. It's about challenging the way their mind works, it's about challenging their thinking skills, challenging how they do something. The last item there is a resource that was created to think about the way different students learn. So this was a audio support revision material. It was based around music, so it was just musical tracks with information talked over that linked in with the musical track, that linked in with the topic for that lesson. So this was really important for helping the lower ability to gain access to revision material when they weren't particularly able to access written revision material. It added as a support item, or it also allowed the top ability to skim over their revision if they had done the main revision, the bulk of it through reading, and they wanted something extra to add on to. So thinking about unique resources that you can use for your department and making sure that you are, again, using other people's work. A lot of these are available on websites like TES Resources. This slide talks about the environment for learning. I really think that if you can use the environment to learning to aid your department and to tell the students exactly what they can do to improve their work, then it will really take away what you might need to do in your marking or in lesson times as well. So the first example to really indicate that is the top left hand picture. It's a GCSE display board that went through how to answer different kinds of questions. This can then be used for students in lesson if they're struggling to go and look at it, so it takes away from your time and it aids with your marking as well and self-evaluation of the students. You can add work to it so the students can see their work, can see marking comments, and you can really use your environment to take away from your workload. The bottom left hand corner was an indication of how you can engage students who wouldn't necessarily be engaged in certain things. So this, for example, was how to engage students who weren't really engaged with writing or who didn't want to push themselves. They basically got board markers and wrote on the desks. It was amazing to see how suddenly you took away an A4 line bit of paper and suddenly they could do whatever they wanted on the desk, and they would write loads. They would do images, they would do pictures, they would work together, so you can have big groups doing this. And it meant that people that sometimes wouldn't necessarily write very much suddenly would write massive amounts. You can then photograph it and put it in their book. So it's again using the environment in maybe unique and different ways, looking at them with a different eye, so that you can see how simple items such as board markers and a desk can be used actually as a resource as well. The middle top picture is a classroom behaviour log. So again, using the environment to be able to show students where they are, what they're doing, how well they're doing. Setting it up so that you can use it over and over and over again. Again, you can then photograph it and put it in a log if you want to focus on and see where students are going lesson after lesson, or you can just use it as a lesson by lesson basis to aid you with your classroom management. The bottom middle picture is of levels. Although we're moving away from levels, maybe you can still have indicators of what students need to do to reach each kind of goal, especially when we're talking about the GCSEs. Or at the top as well, you've got keywords, so you can see along the top pegged onto a line some keywords, so using the environment to help your students get used to those keywords. The top right picture is just some motivational quotes that you can use to just keep your students going over and over again. And the bottom right hand side picture is a library for books that weren't anything necessarily to do with the subject, but to again extend the students' ways of thinking. So they were fictional books that helped the students think about different arguments, different ways of writing themselves. So again, using information, even for the maths departments, they can think about how maths can actually be used in the real world and how it's used in, for example, fictional books. Tracking learning is something definitely as a head of department you need to be doing, and also making sure that you're pushing and knowing your students about where they are. So there's lots and lots of different ways you should be tracking your students as a head of department and tracking other teachers and the ways they are tracking their students as well. The bottom left you can see is a colour coordinated Excel spreadsheet about how all learners were doing in a class, and that can be used to see how all of the learners are working across a cohort. It's up to you how you do this, but you definitely should be tracking your students. Colour coordination makes life so much easier, and to have as much data on there as you can do without spending too much time doing it or reinventing the wheel. So using your data as best you can. The bottom right hand picture is schemes of work, so obviously you need schemes of work to help you to make sure that you're keeping on track throughout the year, and obviously all staff should be using those. The top two pictures are of ways to track students in a long term or in a short term to make them do the tracking for you, so evaluating themselves. The top left one was an example where they looked at how much they knew at the start of the topic and then again at the end of the topic, so they could see if they'd progressed, and then that was evident in their book. The top right one was how they could see how they progressed in lesson, so that they could see if they had progressed at all, and again you can then record that. Just easy colour coordination in your mark book. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about is just going that extra mile. So doing something extra to make sure that you're, again, always focused on being outstanding. And that's basically what outstanding means, to go the extra mile, to do the little bit extra to make your department outstanding. So that could be in getting involved in the school life, to get involved in doing some extra bits, inviting people in, or to maybe use your knowledge and see a problem in the school environment and then try and change it. So this, for example, where you see the Polite Ethos focus, was a proposal to senior leadership team about how something I saw as a problem in school could be changed, and how I would go about it and how they could go about it with timings and solutions and problems and opportunities. If you want to move up to senior leadership team, this is a really good way of getting involved and helping out your school as well. And that's basically what we all want, is to help out the school and to help out our students as much as possible. So this is something I really like. I think it's really gives an idea of what we want to do as educators and shows what we should be doing with our students. Sometimes for students it's very scary to go the extra mile themselves, and that's what we should be doing as educators, and especially as heads of department, to make sure that a department is pushing our higher achievers but supporting them as well. So that's what a head of department should be doing, and that's what an outstanding department should be doing, to make sure that the students and learners are probably on that line of not really being overly sure that they can do something, but we are definitely sure from our tracking, from our knowledge, from our helping, from our resources, that they can achieve to their best ability. Thank you very much. I hope this helped in at least some ways, or at least gave you some ideas of what you can do to make sure that you're ahead of an outstanding department. It's not everything you